It's all for the children. Make sure your microphone is in the proper position. All right, should we start? Let's start the show. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Liquor Commission. What?
Okay.
Thank you. For August 6th. Oh, my cheat sheet has the wrong number. Well done. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Liquor Commission for August 6th. Please stand for the pledge. See, but I can still think. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Clerk Simpson.
Commissioner Kruger? Present. Commissioner Vito?
Here.
Commissioner Lang?
Here.
Commissioner Papantos? Present. Commissioner Vogel?
Here.
Commissioner Brady?
Here.
Chairperson Horker?
Here, you have before you the minutes of the special meeting of June 4th, 2018. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, Dave Vogel, second,
Both of
Mary.
them.
What?
Both of them.
Thank you. Mary Papantos. Roll call.
Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Brady?
Yes.
Chairperson Horker?
Yes. You also have before you the minutes of the special meeting of the Liquor Commission for June 18th, 2018. I need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Trustee Lang, Commissioner Lang, second, Commissioner Kruger. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
Yes.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel?
Yes.
Commissioner Brady?
Yes.
Chairperson Horker?
Yes. Clerk Simpson, citizens' comments.
Yes. 1 second. Members of the public may address the committee with comments regarding only those items that are relevant to village business. No citizen shall speak for more than 5 minutes without consent of the committee. Members of the general public who wish to address the board must sign the request to speak form prior to the commencement of the public meeting. Ms. Bastone?
Just as a reminder, this is not a time for dialogue or debate. This is a time for citizens' comments. Please.
Hello, Grace Bastone. I'd like to make a comment. This is not a debate. My only comment to the board is that I believe there are too many liquor licenses already in the village of Wheeling, and that especially this particular one, or one of the licenses, is only a matter of 2 doors away, or 2 addresses. 767 through 773 is the property that I own, and it's part of B&O Liquors. It's the property that B&O Liquors is on, and we have 10,000 square feet of liquor. I don't need any more liquor 2 doors away from us. So I'm offended at the fact that, without looking at the complete neighborhood, maybe you would consider the fact that we already have enough liquor right within a matter of walking distance. That's my comment. When I go on to the board meeting, then I will have much more to say. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Donna Bastone?
Hi, Donna Bastone, 767 West Dundee. I just have to reiterate what my mother said. I understand that liquor is a big business, and I know that we have a lot of liquor licenses in the town. I also feel that possibly this may already be decided. I'm not sure. However, we've been in town for 20 years. We put a lot of money into towards taxes for the village, as far as sales taxes, property taxes, things like this. So another liquor license, I don't mind liquor licenses when they're being distributed to establishments that offer other value to the community. I am against the liquor licenses being approved for the initial purpose of just having gambling kiosks in the village. And that's my comment on that. I believe that when we had our liquor license and the gambling came in, it helped us. We did not come into business to obtain a liquor license in order to open a gambling establishment. And I believe that we offer more value than that to this town. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am.
Deborah Wilson?
Yes, President Horker, about a year ago, right after you were sworn in, Serenello's came, the chef from Serenello's, and you were approving a liquor license for an event at your farm. And you opened up that item on the agenda by saying, for purposes of full transparency, you asked the chef, how much money are we making on this? And the chef said he hadn't quite tweaked it all out with the farm yet, and you said that would be my brother. So as Mr. Frollo can tell you, as the highest official in the village, once you reference information publicly, you make that a public document, it becomes a public record. So I was hoping that you would tell us this evening how much money that you did in fact make last year, because I see you're doing the event again this year.
0.
All right, I'll be FOIAing the contract for that later in the week. Thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
New business, 6A, Clerk Simpson.
6A, consideration of a request for Class NV liquor license from Dolly's Bistro, LLC, DBA Dolly's Bistro.
Mr. Svandilis.
Thank you. As the title indicates, you have before you this evening a request for a new Class NV liquor license from Dolly's Bistro. This is a video gaming cafe. Class NV is exactly that, video gaming cafes. There are 4 conditions. The petitioner, I believe, is here, but there are 4 petitions that I would ask that a motion be made conditioned upon. 1, passage of legislation by the Board of Trustees granting special use approval. 2, passage of an ordinance by the Board of Trustees authorizing the creation of a new Class NV liquor license. 3, payment of all applicable fees. And 4, satisfactory background check results. Happy to answer any questions, and if the petitioner is in the audience, if you could just come forward and answer any questions the commission may have.
Commissioner Papantos and then Commissioner Lang.
Thank you. For your business model, can anybody come into your establishment and have something to eat, or is this limited to those over 21 because of the gambling, or?
Yes, it would be over 21.
So how are you going to enforce that?
We put the sign on the door, and also the staff would watch for that.
How many?
When they first come in, it'll be the seating for the food, and then the counter, and then the gaming is in the back, not accessible to anybody.
But that's what I'm speaking about, in the front of the store.
It'll be posted on the front door, yeah.
So in order to enter, you have to be over 21.
Right.
Okay, and is staff going to be Bassett trained?
What is it?
Yes.
Will staff be Bassett
Yes.
trained?
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Papantos. Commissioner Lang.
So is there any way we can take a look at our NV license again? I'm fearful that we watered it down just a bit too much. We were looking at, we had a license at one point where we were restrictive on a number of pure gaming facilities. Facilities were coming in with restaurants or serving a better quality food. The soup place is a perfect example. And then all of a sudden, NV comes along and we lose his option for serving any kind of additional food with this at this place. And it's disappointing because we were getting a better product at one time, and now I think we're just getting gaming cafes, and we certainly do have enough of those.
Just to clarify, the NV license isn't new. It's just that the board voted to rescind the cap that was on the amount of
Right.
such licenses.
Right, okay. And so, and with that cap came, so You're correct. NV was the 3 that we had originally.
Correct.
And then all others had to fall under a higher standard of a restaurant type.
Restaurant or tavern with a video gaming license, correct, yes.
And that's where we went wrong. That's how I feel. And so I'd like to look at that in the future again if the rest of the board agrees. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Brady?
Thank you. According to ordinance, 50% of your profit is supposed to come from food. You've got 4 seats in here. You maybe had a couple more. You mean to tell me that 4 seats are going to outweigh 5 gambling machines in profit? Because that flies right in the face of our ordinance.
There are going to be 8 seats there, but all I can go from is my past experience with my other business that I've had for 4 years. We do a lot of carry-out business. People don't necessarily sit in there to eat, but we have even other businesses in the area that will order and come and pick it up. We do make quality food.
Yeah. I find it strange that, you know, the food part of this is so small compared to the real moneymaker of the whole scheme. I'm not really excited about the fact that these are coming in at this pace, being so close to each other. Thank you.
Commissioner Papantos?
Manager Sfondalis, could you clarify something for me on the NV liquor license regarding what Trustee Brady just said? Is the 50% based on total revenue, or is it based on food, alcohol, and non-alcoholic beverages?
It's 50% of the total gross revenue from all food and beverage on an annual basis.
But not
the gaming.
Not
Correct.
gaming is what I'm getting at.
That's correct.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions or comments, I'd be looking for a motion to approve.
So
With
moved.
the 4 conditions, please.
Right, with the 4 conditions as stated. You want them reread or as read?
As read.
Mary,
Was that a motion from
Mary Papantos.
Mary Papantos, second from
I'll second.
Ray Lang? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Kruger? Yes. Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
No.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel?
No.
Commissioner Brady?
No.
Chairperson Horker?
No.
It's 4 noes.
Sorry. That is no.
Um, 7B,
Yes, please.
consideration of request for a Class NV liquor license from June's Wheeling LLC, DBA June's Lounge.
Mr. Sfondalis.
Thank you. Again, as the title indicates, this is a request for a Class NV video gaming facility at the aforementioned, actually, we didn't mention the address, at 755 West Dundee Road. There are 2 conditions that I would ask any motion be made a part of. 1, passage of legislation by the Board of Trustees granting special use approval, and 2, passage of an ordinance by the Board of Trustees authorizing the creation of a new Class NV liquor license. I believe the petitioner is in the audience.
Commissioners, questions? Commissioner Vito, then Commissioner Papantos.
Yeah, I think the board should vote to reinstate the cap if you guys are going to vote no on these things without real explanation as to why. I mean, maybe there is an explanation as to why. Maybe it was what the PS Pub ladies were saying, proximity to the other liquor establishment. But if everyone's kind of getting cold feet on these gaming cafes, then we need to reinstate that cap. We took the cap off. Now people are coming because we took the cap off, and now we're saying we don't want this many gaming cafes in town. So we need to figure out what we're doing. I personally don't have any problem with these things. The police will tell us. I don't think there's ever been a complaint, right, Deputy Chief? There, and they look kind of nice. I mean, on the signage and everything like that, I don't think there's any problems with them. I personally don't have any moral problems with them. If people want to sit in front of these machines, I don't know why. I think it's dumb, but if that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. So I think we need to make up our minds on that issue as to what we're going to do moving forward. With that said, that's just my piece on that issue.
Thank you, Commissioner Vito. Valid point. Commissioner Papantos?
Yes, thank you. What is the age limit to enter your facility?
21.
Okay, and how are you going to enforce that?
We'll card ID.
At the door?
At the door, yes.
And will all your employees be Bassett trained?
Yes.
You talked about at the Plan Commission using the facility for small gatherings like birthday parties and that kind of thing?
Correct.
How many people would you have in there?
Up to 10 to 15.
So you would limit it? Would that be like by reservation, or is there something special, or just people show up?
If it was a special occasion, people would just show up for that gathering. They can make reservations if they'd like. But we're an upscale type of facility, so it's more like a Las Vegas feel to it, a Las Vegas theme, very luxurious. So it also doubles as a facility to have an event such as a birthday party or a bachelorette party or something like that.
Thank you.
Commissioner Vogel?
I agree with Trustee Vito or Commissioner Vito. When we voted to lift the cap, I voted against it. And that's why I'll continue to vote against these type of cafes whenever they come before us. So just as an explanation so everybody understands that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Vogel. Commissioner Kruger?
Thank you, President Hooker. Hi, your colleague was actually at the Plan Commission meeting, and I don't know if you can speak to this topic, but it might be a good time to try. She mentioned something about self-eliminating, that this business of video gaming could be considered self-eliminating, that sort of the survival of the fittest kind of thing. If there are too many in an area, then some will fail. I think that's the theory of capitalism. I'm just kind of wondering if you can speak to it as the owner of one of these cafes.
Sure, thank you. That's a great question. I believe wholeheartedly in that. It's self-regulating, just like any capitalist market. If it was a sandwich shop, we wouldn't want to open a sandwich shop serving the same type of sandwiches right next door. But if we served a better sandwich and a higher quality sandwich, then of course we might do a little bit better than the other establishment next to us, and they may go out of business. So where we feel we offer something better and different, and we can flourish in a competitive market and a competitive nature, just like any other business. But I believe that 100%.
Thank you very much. Well done. I'm done.
Thank you. Commissioner Brady?
Thank you. You know, I've always thought that our duty as village board and trustees is to watch out for our businesses. And I don't think it's good business to line up almost in one shopping center 3 similar businesses. You would put 3 Walgreens within a quarter block, or 3 drugstores within a quarter of a block of each other. You know, you wouldn't put, you put gas stations on the corners, right? But there's so many instances where you try to separate things so everybody has a chance to win. What we're looking at here tonight is putting 3 gambling establishments within a quarter of a block of each other. It's not right. I was for maybe opening up the gaming a little bit for several reasons, but I see what's happening. I've certainly extensively changed my mind to be against this. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Brady. If there are no other comments, Commissioner Vito.
Yeah, just in response to that, and with respect to Commissioner Brady, I couldn't disagree more. I mean, I don't think we should be in the business of picking winners and losers. If these people want to compete, they should be allowed to compete. I don't understand how this market works with all of these things opening up. I've driven by them. I've never seen anyone in them. I don't know how the profit is made, but apparently it works. But I would have to think at some point there's some saturation. And to that competition, to the women from the PS Pub, I don't think you have anything to worry about. None of your people are going to leave to go to another place. I hang out there. I've been in your establishment. They're going to stay at those machines because they like everybody there and everybody knows everybody there. They're not going to go to these other places. But regardless, I don't think we should be picking who can compete in the market if we're going to open up the market to other people in it. So it's just my thought on it.
Thank you, Commissioner Vito.
President Booker? Real quick,
okay.
real quickly, as far as liquor licensing goes, when you have a code that doesn't keep extra liquor licenses on the books like we have, the granting of a liquor license falls within the discretion of this board. And there's a reason for that under the law. Having a certain number of liquor licenses or too many in a community can have an adverse effect. So the decision whether or not to grant this license is within your discretion. If we carried extra licenses on the books, then you'd have to have cause to deny the license. As long as you, let's say with the last license, as long as that denial was not for a discriminatory purpose, it falls within your discretion. Trustee Vito's right, though. Competition is not something we look at from a zoning perspective. It's not within our purview. And really from a liquor licensing perspective, you should be looking at the idea of whether or not you want to have additional liquor licenses on the books in the village rather than a competition issue. That is for the business owners that decide whether or not they want to face that competition. It's not your role to protect businesses in town as much as you might want to. You act as either a zoning body or, in this case, a liquor licensing body. So your decision should be made for the right reasons.
What I might answer that, Mr. President?
Go ahead.
One of the duties of our village here is to check these liquor licenses in these establishments. Every time you put a liquor license on the books, that means the police department has more to go visit every month with their visits. You know, their what do you call them? Inspections. You know, and they're people go in there and try to see if they'll be able to sell them under 21. And it's just, I don't know. I think it's just getting a little overboard with liquor licenses. I think it's getting a little overboard with the gambling. I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir.
I'm done.
No other comments? No other comments? I would be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
With the two conditions
With
as read.
conditions as read.
Thank you, Commissioner Kruger. Second.
Second.
Commissioner Papantos. Roll call, Clerk Simpson.
Commissioner Kruger?
Yes.
Commissioner Vito?
Yes.
Commissioner Lang?
No.
No?
No.
Commissioner Papantos?
Yes.
Commissioner Vogel?
No.
Commissioner Brady?
No.
Chairperson Horker?
No.
Failed, 4-3.
Thank you, sir. Sorry.
Thank you.
That concludes our Liquor Commission meeting agenda. I need a motion to approve, to adjourn.
So moved.
Give the motion to Commissioner Lang, second to Commissioner Kruger. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Village Board for August 6th, 2018. Roll call, please.
6:53. Please. Okay. Trustee Kruger?
Present.
Trustee Vito?
Here.
Trustee Lang?
Here.
Trustee Papantos?
Present.
Trustee Vogel?
Here.
Trustee Brady?
Here.
President Horker?
Here. You have before you the minutes of the joint workshop meeting of June 27th, 2018. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Oh, wait.
I'll get that one.
No, wait, just 1 second, please.
Sorry.
I'm on the wrong one.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
No, I jumped.
Okay, now I'm okay.
That was a motion from Trustee Brady, second.
Second.
Give that to Trustee Vogel. Roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. You also have before you the minutes of the regular meeting of June 18th, 2018. I need a motion for their approval.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Vogel, second.
Second.
Trustee Brady, roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. Mr. Spondilis, do we have any changes to the agenda?
We do. Based on the Liquor Commission's rulings, I'd ask for a motion to remove items 13A and 13B from the agenda.
So moved.
Wait, 13A and
13A and
13B, remove.
A second.
Was that a motion from trustee Papantos?
Papantos.
And a second from trustee Lang?
Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
we also have to remove 11B.
Well, that goes under,
A and B?
11B.
Well,
that goes under consent agenda.
remove, or you'd like to discuss it
Or
as part
remove
of a
it.
new business?
No, isn't that to increase the authorized number for
Correct.
items 13A and B? I think that's right. That should be removed as well.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, I'm sorry. Correct.
Wait, 11,
A and B.
Just 11B,
11B.
just 11B?
right?
So 13A, 13B, and 11B.
But we don't have to vote on 11B.
No, you do. It's
We
very,
do?
you're not removing it to vote on it. It's going to be removed entirely from the agenda.
We have to
So
do it-
we already did a motion for 13A and B. Let's do a second motion to remove
For 11.
11A.
11B.
11B, I'm sorry.
11B, okay. Okay, go for it.
Somebody like to make that motion,
I said
Mr.
so
Vogel?
moved.
Second.
Vogel, Kruger, okay. Roll call?
Ray wants it. He made the motion.
Ray instead of who?
Vogel.
Okay. Ray and Vogel. Okay. Ready? Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
Okay,
There we go. Proclamations, Clerk Simpson.
okay. 175th anniversary of B'nai B'rith International. 2018 marks the 175th anniversary of B'nai B'rith International. The organization was founded on the Lower East Side of New York to improve the lives of new German Jewish immigrants to America. B'nai B'rith is the oldest service organization founded in the United States and has an unparalleled record of aiding humanity in communities throughout the United States and around the world. B'nai B'rith has provided over $100 million in cash, medical equipment, and supplies to victims of disasters worldwide since 1868. B'nai B'rith is a strong and vocal advocate for the promotion of the State of Israel and has an active presence in Israel since 1888. B'nai B'rith has had an active presence at the United Nations since its founding and is the only Jewish non-governmental organization with full-time representation at the United Nations in New York and its agencies in Europe and Latin America. B'nai B'rith is America's largest Jewish sponsor of federally funded housing for seniors with limited income, provides safe, comfortable, and affordable housing for seniors without regard for race, religion, ethnicity, and has an international network of senior living facilities. B'nai B'rith is widely acclaimed as a forceful advocate for senior citizens with a special emphasis on protecting Social Security and Medicare and in supporting health care reform for all. B'nai B'rith has a long-standing commitment to cultural diversity, tolerance, and understanding as exemplified by the Diverse Minds Youth Writing Challenge, which teaches the values of tolerance and diversity. B'nai B'rith members in local communities, including Wheeling, provide countless hours of service to local projects to better the communities in which they live. Patrick Horker, President of the Village of Wheeling, does hereby proclaim congratulations to the members of B'nai B'rith International on the occasion of their organization's 175th anniversary and wishes them continued success and happiness in the future.
Do we have a representative from
there.
B'nai B'rith? There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's on.
It was on, yes.
Perfect. I'm not the tech guy. 175 years, it's really quite an accomplishment, and helping the entire population, helping not just a small section of the population. Just thank you for your involvement in the community, and if you'd like to say a few words about where you're located and how people can reach you. It's commercial time.
First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Shel Marcus. I live in Morton Grove. I happen to be a former village trustee of Morton Grove, so I know what you fellows go through, ladies as well. And I compliment all of you for the public service you give to your community. I belong here with Bob Kaufman, who was the past Midwest Region President of B'nai B'rith, Wheeling resident. How many years, Bob?
12 years.
12 years. Very good.
Prairie Park.
Prairie Park. I appreciate this award. We're getting resolutions like this throughout the country. We're doing a tremendous job here in the state of Illinois. We've got resolutions from almost 13 different community villages and cities and the governor, and we're doing this, I say, throughout the entire country. The reason we're doing it now is because in October of this year, B'nai B'rith is going to hold a big gala leadership forum in New York. And your resolution, as well as resolutions from all over the country, will be displayed. So all the attendees who will be there will be able to see that your community has certainly backed and sponsored the endorsement of what B'nai B'rith has done. We appreciate this. B'nai B'rith, as you say, is one of the oldest, if not the oldest, organizations in the country, over 175 years, and we thank you for this special award, and we thank all the trustees again for their support in the community. And you know, one of the things that we did for this particular year, we made up a very special commemorative pin that I'm wearing and Mr. Kaufman is wearing to honor the 175th, and because of that, we'd like to present you on behalf of B'nai B'rith a little memento and a thank you. Is the 175th pin that we'd like to present to you. Thank you so much. Thank you all. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Come on up here. No, come on to the front. Come on to the front. Don't worry. It's okay. Can we take a microphone? That's fine. This is Mrs. Kaufman. The official from Wheeler.
Stop yelling at her.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you again. Thank you.
Proclamation, citizens' comments. Clerk Simpson.
Okay, members of the public may address the board with comments regarding only those items that are relevant to village business. No citizen shall speak for more than 5 minutes without consent of the board. Members of the general public who wish to address the board must sign the request to speak form prior to the commencement of the public meeting.
And again, this is a time for public comments on issues relative to the village business. Please be aware that this is not a time for discussion or debate. It's just please express, it's your time to express your opinions. Clerk Simpson?
Mr. Hine. Bill? Oh,
there he is.
Good evening, Bill Hine, 200 Deborah Lane, Wheeling, Illinois. I would like to take a couple of minutes of your time to discuss two items that are under new business this evening, and that is the Transportation Center as a special use in the I-3 zoning, and the rezoning from R1A single family to and I-3 industrial, I-1 industrial to an I-3 zoning. As you know, and you folks also realize that we have one of the largest and best industrial park systems in the state of Illinois. And it didn't get there by chance. It got there because of the way we control our zoning in the industrial area and our comp plan.
it's very important that we keep the system going that we have, because what it does is it puts a natural control on what types of zoning and what types of businesses and what types of industrial zoning we have here. And it gives us an opportunity to do a transition from single family, multiple family into our industrial parks. And there's got to be some type of control of that. Otherwise, we're going to have a hodgepodge and we're going to be spot zoning. When you think about what happened and what's happening here, is your folks are being asked to change a definitive part of our zoning process, and that is a definition of what we are trying to do. Okay, and we're talking about the transportation center and the definition of a transportation center versus a truck terminal. And that's happening over on Wolf Road. I want to caution you, because of the fact that you are taking one of the highest industrial uses in the I-3 zoning, and you're putting it into an area where there are single-family homes. You have a crown jewel of the airport across the street with high-input jets coming in every day from all over the world with very important clientele. And we have to put our best foot forward to keep all these entities going. You are going to be putting semis over there that are going to be running with diesel fuel, that are going to be running 24/7 when wintertime comes because they are not inside. They are going to be running because of the fact that they have refrigeration, and they are going to be putting gaseous fumes into the area of a residential area. When we annexed this piece of property a few years ago, okay, it was one of the very few pieces, the last pieces to come into the village. We have, in a portion of this property, we have a tax increment financing district. We should be utilizing that to enhance that area and the single-family growth over there. That's what should have been done. The infrastructure should have been put in there so that they could keep the R zoning over there. The R1A is strictly a mechanism to bring them in when you do an annexation. What I'm getting at is you are being forced by the petitioner to change the way you do business in this community relative to the text. Please don't do that. The Planning Commission, which is comprised of citizens of this community, voted unanimously to defeat this petition. There was a reason for it. The testimony that they gave throughout 2 public hearings, 2 different times, okay, did not justify doing a text amendment.
Wrap it up, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hine.
Grace Pistone.
Grace Pistone. I would like to, first of all, make a comment regarding the possibility of putting a cap on the liquor licenses for the village. I think that maybe currently that we do have enough liquor licenses, and I really don't want to have to keep coming here making a point. My whole point is that I agree with liquor licenses for sit-down restaurants for so many people, where you're sitting down and there's a group of people where you enjoy having a drink or putting new business into the community, as far as restaurants or social places where they can at least have more than 5 gaming machines. You know that's where it lies. And I thank you for not passing the last 2 requests. But then when Mia's come along, I have a little different opinion about that one regarding their license, because they're a sit-down restaurant with more than 5 gaming machines. So, and it's in the village center. You know, when they started planning this village center years ago, there was no gaming involved, period. So I know that the village center, to hope that it goes along and improves after all the work that's been done over the years of trying to get this center together, that when you consider the amount of licenses and what kind you're giving away and what they're for, I would really appreciate a really good look into it, okay? That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Glover?
My name is Thomas Gloger. I live at 104 Lynn Lane in Wheeling. My wife and I have lived in Wolf Run Estates for 41 years, and for most of that time we have had an operating truck terminal at 1075 Chaddock, which is just across Dean Avenue from our house. So we know what kind of a neighbor a semi-truck facility makes. I wouldn't wish it on others. I think a semi-truck facility at the proposed location, which is JV Global, would have a serious impact not only on those who have chosen to live in Wolf Run Estates, but I think it would also be detrimental to the village of Wheeling. Currently, people driving past the site in question see a pleasant green space with grass and mature trees, a recognized source of psychological restoration. JV Global wants to replace it with a 6 or 7 field of semi-trailers. It's not what you would call a welcoming image. I believe the traffic study JV Global used showed truck traffic peaking at 1 truck every 2 minutes. 1 truck every 2 minutes if they're spaced at even intervals. In reality, there will be times when several trucks will want to come or go at the same time, all through the intersection of Kerry and Wolf. If this proposal were to pass, I'm not sure the left lane from Wolf Road at Kerry Lane could be lengthened enough so that northbound traffic would not be blocked by the semi-trucks waiting for southbound traffic to clear so they can turn left into the facility. Congested traffic on Wolf would affect Wolf Run Estates as well, because Fox Lane, the next street south, is our only way in or out. There's a matter of snow removal. It may seem remote in July, but I think the village should be concerned about the snow removal problems presented by the fence JV Global proposes to place on the north edge of the pavement of Deborah Lane. Dean Avenue, just around the corner from Deborah, has a 3 to 4 foot wide unpaved area between the west edge of the pavement and the fences currently along it. And generally that's been adequate to hold the plowed snow. During heavy snows, the excess was pushed down to the end of Dean. JV Global's proposed plan for Deborah shows no space between the pavement and the proposed fence. All the snow would have to be pushed to the ends of Deborah, which is also the north end of Dean. As far as the sounds, JV Global said truck maintenance would be done inside the building. If they keep the doors closed, that may help. A door open to let in fresh air in the summer would also let out the sounds of impact wrenches. JV Global said trucks will not be allowed to idle there. Those trucks will have to be started again when they're needed. I don't know if you've ever heard the sound of a cold diesel truck engine being air started at 4 a.m. We have. It's loud. And I can tell you from experience the other sounds generated at a semi-truck facility, including the noise of tractors disconnecting and connecting with trailers, blast of air brakes, the shouting, the revving of diesel engines, will carry a lot farther than the 250 feet currently used to judge the range of impact of a proposed zoning variation. Wheeling has regulations governing the hours during which construction can take place adjacent to residential areas. I hope there are regulations restricting the hours of other noisy activities. As far as property values, one of our new neighbors was understandably indignant about the sudden negative impact the village's actions have had on the property value of her recently purchased home on Fox Lane. My financial situation is a little different. We're retired on a fixed income. A single decision by the village can easily knock a significant percentage off our retirement assets. I thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Neff?
Good evening, everybody. Steve Neff, 193 South Wolf Road. Back on April 18th, I attended a Chicago Executive Airport regular board meeting. Slides were presented on the Master Plan Phase 2 update for facility requirements. The study recommends an ideal runway length of 6,200 feet. You also need another 500 feet at each end for a runway safety area. So in order to accomplish this, the new runway would have to cross a major road or highway. The current main runway is 5,000 feet. So this is not good news for long-suffering residents who wake up at all hours of the night to jet noise. I also recently attended the joint workshop on June 27th. This is the annual meeting between Wheeling, Prospect Heights, and the airport's board of directors. I would encourage residents to watch this recorded meeting on YouTube. Simply search Chicago Executive Airport meeting and it'll pop right up. We can thank the city of Prospect Heights for videotaping the meeting. The workshop involved the presentation of Master Plan Phase 3. Consultants Crawford, Murphy, and Tilley introduced the FAA's no-limit approach to future demand for aircraft. They talked about revenue generated by the airport to the municipalities. They mentioned that going ahead with expansion would mean additional property tax revenue of $1 million from new hangars. They did not mention loss of jobs or tax revenue from properties leveled in the name of expansion, nor was any mention of the hit to the thousands of property owners in a significant noise contour. Shouldn't declining home values and corresponding tax receipts be part of the analysis? Also, there was a discussion of the loss of the $260,000 in fuel sales tax that the municipalities used to share. The FAA has made it clear that this windfall is now history. The airport's role as a revenue generator to the village is severely diminished. Another presentation at the workshop was from Images Incorporated on rolling out community engagement within the next 12 months. Were you as impressed as I am with their spaghetti bowl analogy to the new runway? There could be a brand new runway, not just adding length. It would make sense for a new runway to angle across Wolf Road and into Wolf Run Estates. This would be optimal for taking the noise contour over industrial areas and away from schools and residents. JV Global may have made a brilliant investment in this subdivision. In a few short years, the FAA and airport would buy up the land at a premium. Images Incorporated is slated to receive $300,000 for 2 public meetings and 3 stakeholder involvement groups. They will be gushing propaganda in the guise of transparency that this expansion will somehow benefit and trickle down to residents. Their primary focus will be on non-resident stakeholders such as the North Shore Convention Bureau, airport users, state agencies, the mayor of Palatine, the mayor of Arlington Heights, the mayor of Buffalo Grove, to name a few. Thank you for allowing me to play devil's advocate to make sure the conversation includes the downside of airport expansion. And since I have a couple more minutes, if I could also share that I live on Wolf Road, and I heavily use that corridor of Wolf to get to my vendors. And I have a lot of friends that bring their kids back and forth to school on Wolf Road. The kids are going to high school, and I just think it's just going to add a whole nother level of sitting at stoplights if you allow more traffic to go through. There's already one choke point at Mesner, and I think it would be significantly worse. So, careful what you wish for over there. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Sheila Schultz?
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. You heard Mr. Neff's comments, and my comments are going to be much more personal and go back a long, long time, but I will proceed. When we moved to Wheeling in 1965, we loved watching the little Cessnas and the Piper Cubs flying overhead. But when the runway was extended to accommodate the jets, we got our first taste of noise pollution. The flight path was directly over our home in Meadowbrook Lane, and we could clearly see the faces of the pilots as they flew over our backyard. Activity at the airport continued to increase, and there were improvements needed. Palwaukee at that time was one of the busiest airports in the country. In 1967, earlier than that, the owners, the Priester family, applied to the FAA for funding for a control tower. They did not receive it because FAA does not build on private property or fund any building on private property. So Priesters built the tower at their own expense, which was considerable. But further improvements, as things went along, they proved too expensive for private ownership, and the subject of selling the airport was broached, and both the state and the federal governments were eager to have such an important aviation facility transferred to public ownership. Through years of negotiations with the state, it became clear that if neither Wheeling nor Prospect Heights would purchase the airport, the state would. The village board and staff realized that an agreement for the joint purchase was absolutely necessary if the two communities were to maintain control of the management, environment, and safety of the airport. We did not see the acquisition as a financial benefit, but as a means of protection of both our communities. Both communities held referenda to ask their residents how they felt about the issue. Prospect Heights question specifically had the condition, no runway extension. Safety was always our main concern. Before the four-way stop intersection of Hintz and Wolf Roads was relocated, the stop sign at the southwest corner was hit by a low-flying plane as it landed from the north, just a number of feet from a passing car. There have been considerable improvements during the years, and the airport, now Chicago Executive Airport, is an asset of which we are very proud. We're committed to have the safest and the best airport, but biggest is not always best. Mr. Neff has stated on previous occasions that the runway extension could turn a short-term benefit into a long-term detriment for the thousands of residents and businesses surrounding the airport. The very prospect of constructing a runway expansion that would result in a devastating upheaval of the area surrounding the airport and exacerbate the unacceptable noise conditions that exist today. That prospect should make the choice clear. Fortunately, there is another option, the no-build option. I would ask that residents, whether or not they are directly impacted, to support the no runway decision. But I urge you as elected officials to put common sense and our community ahead of special interests. Please say no to runway expansion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schultz.
Donna Bistone.
Hi, and thank you again, Donna Bastone. So I wanted to thank you for hearing us. I know that there's going to be many other people coming into this village to try and obtain liquor licenses for the sole purpose of bringing gaming into this village. I just want you to know that when the gaming board passed all of the games, it was a sidebar to existing businesses in order to help their existing businesses create revenue after the downturn of the economy. So we created a wonderful atmosphere in our bar. You've been there, thank you. We have great customers. We're supporters of this village. And I do books for gaming industry. And I see the downturn, and I see the revenues of per game go down in the last couple of years because we are becoming saturated in Illinois. Right now, there's over 400 licenses pending for games in Illinois, and all these people will get 5 games at the most. It does create revenue for the village through licenses and fees. However, you have to think about where is that money coming from, and who are the people playing it, and what does it cause to society. I think of that. So I do see our business as an environment where we serve people like you are all serving us, and we really appreciate it. I understand that there's new businesses coming in. They're going to need liquor licenses. Give them the opportunity to put a room as far as another, as a sidebar like we have it. It's not where we are making our income. It is just another form of entertainment for our business. And I just wanted to thank you all for your vote of no, and just keep that in mind when other people come forward for this type of an establishment. I know that they put in convection ovens, they serve food. The food is not going to bring in the money. The liquor doesn't even bring in the money to these industries. It's the gambling, and that's what it is. It's black and white. So anyway, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Pistone.
Mr. Coliander.
Mark Coliander, Jackson Drive. I am here to address the proposed zoning change that involves the Wolf Run area. I do call Wheeling my home. I have no skin in this game, except I am a 25-year resident here. The airport does concern me. Changing a residential zoning to heavy industrial is wrong. The property in question is or will be sold to people who already have an interest in a terminal that has had violations that have not been corrected in a timely manner. This tells me that they are not a good corporate neighbor and are not trustworthy. We have heard how there would not be anybody sleeping in their trucks next to a residential area, or how there would not be trucks idling next to a residential neighborhood. We already have idling and sleeping being done in the village all the time. We have lots of industrial people. There are trucks there all the time. We have village ordinance against such things that are not being enforced. We, the Village of Wheeling, do not have code enforcement people available at night. Instead, we rely on residents' complaints and the police department. Is this the plan moving forward? The Planning Commission voted 6-0 not in favor of this zoning change. If I was them and the change happens, I would quit, because the village board doesn't care what we would recommend. A classic case of I'm in charge. If the zoning change happens, whoever votes for it might as well stand up, raise their hand, and say, I'm dirty. Thank you.
Ms. Wilson?
Pat Horker, you taught me everything I needed to learn to do the research that got me going on my quest back in 2017. You taught me how to use the GIS on the laptop and the picnic bench in your farm. I was very wide-eyed with your ideas about controlling taxes and appropriate use of TIF and your plans to regulate TIF. You felt it was being spent improperly. So I'm a little shocked that several months ago you slammed a development that privately you said Lake Cook was this great corridor, and you know, a year earlier, and that same developer is bringing us $2.4 million a year, and this guy, you're granting him TIF money, and he's telling us he can bring us $2 million in the time of 20 years' time. I asked the Plan Commission, and I believe I forwarded the email to you, to please ask Mr. Janak what he anticipates the cost of road repairs would be to Wolf Road and the surrounding roads that these heavy trucks would be using over the course of 20 years. I'm no mathematician, but I imagine that the cost to maintain those roads after all this heavy weight would cost more than the $2 million they're going to bring in 20 years' time. And that really, I saw you really making decisions to go against what I thought you were about when you ran for office. When you go to the GIS, it has this different filters. There's like lot lines, and you can get the PIN numbers, and businesses operated on different properties. And when you click on your property at the Horker Farm, it lists Horker Farms, it lists Horker Brothers Enterprises, and a towing or something like that. I sometimes wonder if you're giving some of these petitioners their way, because it's hard for you to say no to somebody at a 6.3 or 6B tax incentive when you are claiming affidavits to have no other use of your property other than agricultural, and you're unlawfully obtaining 10% property tax, in my opinion, based on my understanding of the law and what I look at these affidavits. I got a box this big from the Cook County assessor going back decades on your property. And I think the one thing I do know about you is I believe that it would be very hard for you to tell someone no when you're getting a benefit and it's not straight up. This says here, I mean, I've got these going back for a decade, you know, well over a decade, these farm affidavits. And it's specifically, it's pursuant to this law that defines farm as like to have the sole use solely for agriculture and no other businesses. And at the bottom of page 1, it says indicate any income other than the income from farmland used for that land. And the affidavit says there are no other non-agricultural related businesses running out of there. I've seen welding going on in there. I've been there. You got automotive repair body shop going on. And so you, on your webpage, you said, you know, the previous guide, stop stealing from Wheeling, but in my understanding of what I'm looking at here, your financial crimes far surpass, they dwarf your predecessor. On the second page of this affidavit, it gives all the pins, including all the pins for your property. And each pin has the portion being used for farming, agriculture, and the portion not. And the acres not farmed, you have to have an explanation why those acres are not being farmed. And it says that it's because of creek and farm buildings. What's going on in that one building is a lot of welding and automotive repair. Ray Lang, you asked this petitioner, oh, when are you going to get that paved, that truck parking lot? But you sat on the board with this man for what, 12, 16 years? He's operating a commercial truck parking lot, and you never asked him, when are you going to get that paved? You're applying a different standard to people connected to the board or not connected to the board. It's wrong. You need to apply the law equally. And I'm actually not in favor of this. I think it's a bad idea because I trust our professional staff. My FOIAs to different towns, I mean, Melanophy, he has not done the kind of work that he used to do since he's been employed by me, but I'm telling you, they're buying his books. I FOIA'd 30 villages surrounding, and I'm getting some $40 receipt for they're buying his books, so they're looking to him for the advice. And I'm wondering, if you vote for this, if it's going to be the first time in Wheeling's history that they went against a unanimous decline of the Plan Commission.
You wrap it up.
You need to step down. You're no longer credible
5 minutes, Ms.
as the highest elected official. You need to step down, Pat. It's time.
Ms. Wilson. Good night. Anyone else, Ms. Clerk Simpson?
No, that's it, President.
Thank you. Consent agenda.
Is there no staff reports?
Correct.
Okay.
This is no.
Okay, consent agenda. All items listed on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member or citizen so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the general order of business and considered after all of the other agenda items. 11A, resolution rescinding resolution number 18-025, authorizing acceptance of the previous bid state of Illinois contract number 4018309 for the purchase of one 2018 Dodge Grand Caravan from Wright Automotive, waiving competitive bidding and accepting a proposal from Napleton Fleet Group for the furnishing of one 2019 Dodge Grand Caravan SE, a cost not to exceed $26,085. Item 11C, resolution authorizing the execution of a second amendment to the service agreement between the Village of Wheeling and Andy Freen Services Incorporated for crossing guard service. 11D, resolution accepting a bid and approving a contract in the amount of $128,279.52 with Kanzler Landscaping Contractor, Incorporated, involving the restoration of the Fox Point property. 11E, resolution accepting a bid and approving a contract in the amount of $180,264 with Chicagoland Paving Contractors, Incorporated, for improvements to metro parking lots. 11F, resolution authorizing the village president and village clerk to execute a first amendment to the agreement between the Village of Wheeling and the City of Des Plaines relative to emergency dispatch services. 11G, resolution authorizing the village president and village clerk to execute a first amendment to the amended and restated intergovernmental agreement, established a joint emergency telephone system board with the City of Des Plaines. 11H, resolution granting a tag day permit to the Wheeling Firefighters Association to conduct a tag day event on August 17, 2018. 11I, resolution waiving competitive bidding and authorizing the village manager to approve a contract with Parvin Claus Sign Company for the gateway sign replacements and project in the amount of $3,700 design phase and $284,799 fabrication installation phase. 11J, resolution authorizing the agreement between the Village of Wheeling and Chicago's North Shore Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes, I'd like to remove 11J, which would then become 13I.
Wait, 11,
11J.
11J will become 13I.
Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else? There are no other changes. Look for a motion to approve the consent.
So moved.
Motion, trustee Vogel.
Second.
Second, trustee Kruger. Roll call.
Papantos.
No.
No? Papantos?
It was Papantos. Ready?
Yep.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes. No old business. We'll jump right into the new business. Clerk Simpson.
13C, ordinance granting special use site plan approval for a sit-down restaurant at 373 West Dundee within building H2 of the Wheeling Town Center subdivision, Mia's Cantina, docket number 2018-16.
Mr. Jennings, what do we have here?
Thank you. Up for your consideration is a special use permit for Mia's Cantina. The Planning Commission has reviewed the requested special use and recommended approval of it. There were no conditions of approval added. The appearance of this building had been previously reviewed by the Planning Commission and the board. So for tonight, you are just looking at the special use, which is the operation of the restaurant itself. There's a representative of the development team here to answer any questions that you have. This is building H2. It is 4,500 square feet of a 6,300 square foot building. So this would be on the east side of the Village Plaza between the City Works building, which is under construction now, and the residential building.
Just a moment, did the fire lane issue get sorted out?
There really was no issue. I think it was just a misunderstanding of where the outdoor seating was.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Trustee Papantos?
Thank you. You'd be disappointed if I didn't ask a question, right, Brad? I knew that. On your submission, you state that during peak hours, you would have 19 employees, or they would have 19 employees during peak hours?
Yes, if that's, yeah, the information came straight from me as the operations group. That's correct.
Right, and then I'm assuming that the peak hours of Mia Cantina would be the same as the peak hours at City Works and CMX, and that the employees are going to be parking at the top level of the garage. And is there enough parking for all the peak hour employees?
We have 100 parking spaces on the 6th level that are set aside for employees of retail.
And during peak hours, will that 100 parking places cover everything, is what I'm asking?
Yes. Yes, we updated our parking and traffic study, and that was submitted in conjunction with all the special use permits and site plan revisions and whatnot. And that takes into consideration all of the other retail tenants that we have in place, their times of operation and their peak times as well.
Okay. And this building, or this restaurant is going to take approximately 2/3 of building H2?
Correct.
Do we know what's going in the other third?
No, we still have 1,700 square feet left in building H2. I'm not that worried about it. I actually think it's one of the most sought after locations in the town center, right between Mia's Cantina and City Works and right across from CMX, right along the plaza. So I think it's a great location, and I'm sure we'll fill it with a qualified tenant.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If there are no other questions, I would be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, trustee Vogel, second, trustee Kruger. Roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
Okay, then we go to item D. Ordinance granting special use site plan approval for a drive-through bank at 337 West Dundee Road within Building B of the Wheeling Town Center subdivision, Inland Bank, docket number 2018-17.
Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. Similar to the last item for your consideration, the appearance of this particular building was reviewed and approved by the board at a prior meeting. For your consideration tonight is the special use which is required because the bank has a drive-through lane. A drive-through bank is required to go through special use approval similar to a restaurant. The building is Building B, which is the northeast building to the east of the Starbucks, which is under construction currently, so closest to the east access drive, which is shared with the Park District. The Planning Commission has recommended approval. It's a 2,000 square foot unit and a 2-unit building, meaning that there would be an additional space available for rent. The Planning Commission did not have any conditions of approval associated with this, and the representative of the development team is here to answer questions.
Any questions from the board? Sure.
No questions, Mary?
I'll ask for Mary. What are the hours of operation?
That's
her favorite questions.
The hours of operation, I believe, are 8:30 to 5:30. They said that they may extend drive-through hours a half an hour earlier or later. I think that would be an operational decision based on, traffic and business and whatnot. So, excellent question.
Thank you.
Also, on behalf of Mary, what's the asset base? Mary was curious.
The what?
I can't answer that question. You'll have to talk to Nick Helm.
Okay, thank you.
If there are no other real questions, motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
That'd be a motion from Trustee Lang, second from Trustee Vogel. Roll call, please.
Trustee Lang.
Yes.
Trustee Vogel. Trustee Krueger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Good to see you again. Hope you all enjoyed your tour of the One Wheeling Town Center. Take it easy. You have a big night.
Thank you.
Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, 13E. Oh, I read that. 13F, ordinance granting a rezoning from R1A, RI8, single-family residential district, and I1 light industrial office district to I3 general industrial district for the southeast corner of Wolf Road in Kerry Lane, docket number 2.
E first.
E first.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed E?
Yes, you did.
I'm sorry about that.
All right.
Ordinance E, ordinance granting, amending Title 19 zoning of the Woodland Municipal Code to add transportation center as a special use in the I3 General Industrial District, docket number 2018-13A. I apologize.
It's all right. Who do we have? Mr. Spondilos, what are we doing?
We're going to go to Director Jennings for a presentation of each of the 2 questions before the board.
Mr. Jennings.
Thank you. Up for your consideration tonight, 2 separate items, 2 ordinances from a single petitioner. This is, I think, important to start out the discussion on this is exactly what it is that's up for consideration. It is a somewhat unusual request. I had a similar discussion with the Planning Commission. Procedurally speaking, what a text amendment is, what a rezoning is. In this case, you have a 3-part petition, and right now, tonight, you're hearing, you have for your consideration 2 of the 3 parts. The 3rd part of their petition has not been closed out by the Planning Commission, so to speak. They haven't made a recommendation on it. The public hearing on the 3rd portion of it has not been fully completed. The 2 items for your consideration tonight are a text amendment, which is a amendment to the zoning code, and a rezoning, which would be more typical of what you would see, changing the zoning designation for a particular area of town. The text amendment, most frequently when you see a text amendment, it's a staff petition. It's a item that's put in front of you by the village staff to modify the regulations in the zoning code. It is possible, however, for a non-village petition, in this case a private party, to request a modification to the zoning code to, in this case, create a new definition and then establish in the zoning districts in the village where that newly defined use would be permitted. So taking them in 2 pieces. First, you have the rezoning. I'm sorry, you have them listed. First, the transportation center, which is a definition. Both of these items are non-site specific items. These are not petitions that relate to the specific development. They would facilitate the development, but at the petitioner's request at the Plan Commission, the Plan Commission did vote on the first two, making recommendations against both the rezoning and the text amendment. The text amendment would establish a new definition for transportation center. You have the full definition written into your packet. It would establish a new definition for the use group, transportation center, and then it would assign the locations in the village where that would be allowed, and it would be allowed in the I-3 district as a special use. It is a generally applicable to all I-3. So a vote in favor of it does mean that within 10 days this would be codified, and the new definition would exist, and any location that's within an I-3 district in the village of Wheeling would be considered to be eligible as a special use. So any owner of I-3 property could authorize a petition to come in and request a transportation center at that point. So that's the meaning of what you're looking at. It would be generally applicable to all of the I-3 property in town. The staff review, which you have in your memo, I'm not going to go through the entire thing, but both in the original report to the Plan Commission and then following the Plan Commission findings, I didn't feel that the petitioner had met the standards for the text amendment. There are 6 standards in the zoning code to rezone a property. Those standards also apply to amending the text of the code. In the case of the text amendment, I didn't find that the petitioner put together a compelling argument to satisfy the standards. That's explained in greater detail in the staff report. Happy to answer questions on it, but I don't want to read the entire staff report to you. The rezoning item, the related part of the petition, the comprehensive plan does call for this area to be industrial. The future land use plan, which is part of the comprehensive plan, designates this area for industrial. At the time of the comprehensive plan, there was no specific guidance to explain exactly what the intent of that industrial future land use would be. Would it be heavy industrial? Would it be light industrial? There's no clear guidance to further explain the vision at the time. So my feeling on this was that given the lack of specificity in the comprehensive plan, I had felt that the petitioner had adequately answered the standards for the standards for the rezoning action. The Plan Commission, on a review at the public hearing, found several reasons that the rezoning would not meet the standards, and they subsequently did vote against that. So what you have, again, in front of you are 2 non-site specific petitions. If approved, they would facilitate the eventual discussion of the special use. Right now, the special use hearing is continued to a date of August 23rd. So should both of these be approved, the Plan Commission will then take up the special use public hearing and then forward their findings of fact on the third part of the 3-part petition. With that, the petitioner is here to answer questions. They do have a presentation available, which is a separate. This is the only slide in the staff presentation. So they do have a presentation available if it would assist in the discussion of any questions that you may have for them.
Questions from the board?
So,
Trustee Lang?
Thank you. So, transportation center, that's a new definition for us, you're saying. And we don't have too many text amendments for a reason, correct?
It's somewhat infrequent. As I had said, most of the text amendments are staff generated. We've had a few. The most recent that I can think of was an amendment related to the asphalt plant, which was not defined as a distinct use, and the owners felt that they would be better served by defining that as a distinct use and not including it with other uses in the zoning code. So we have had it done. But you're right, it is a fairly infrequent occurrence.
And part of that is it's precedent setting. So, like you said, anything, just to get this clear, anything or any I-3 area could have a transportation center in it now.
It generally applies. So in this case, what they have requested would be a special use. It wouldn't be a permitted use, but it would be a special use in the I-3 district. But the meaning of the special use is that assuming that you could satisfy the standards for a special use, the use itself is deemed to be appropriate, generally speaking, in the I-3 district. But it does still require an additional follow-up step. You have to go through the special use hearing to demonstrate how you do meet those standards.
Okay. Thank you.
Trustee Papantos?
Thank you. Director Jennings, to the best of your knowledge, what's the closest thing to a transportation center that we have here? Is this a truck depot like I see in Schiller Park or Melrose Park or an area like that?
The closest thing that we have in the village of Wheeling to the transportation center, I think that in our review of this, it's most similar to bits and pieces of different uses. So I think that the idea of proposing a text amendment to clarify just generally the idea of trying to establish the definition does make sense because it is little bits and pieces of other definitions, other uses that are defined in the code. Truck terminal, truck parking lot, accessory truck parking, motor vehicle storage. There are bits and pieces of it. There's a dispatch office function that's defined in the code as well. So there are parts of it that are overlapping with, parts of it that overlap with existing definitions in the code, but is not wholly inclusive of the different aspects that the petitioner is trying to establish.
Thank you.
Trustee Vito?
So what is the standard that you have a problem with that is not met for a text amendment?
I have to open the memo to get all of them. Give me 1 second. But it was, you're saying the number? Which number?
Yeah, specific. I mean, I don't care the number. I mean, specifically, what's the beef? I mean, why is this an inappropriate thing to do?
Generally speaking, there are several standards, but the theme of all of them was that the petitioner had not really clarified exactly what the use is as to be distinguished from an existing use that is prohibited by omission. So my review of this was that it was substantially similar to a commercial truck parking operation. In that any use that was not commercial truck parking was really minor in scope, and the primary use of this seemed to me to be most substantially similar to truck parking, which is prohibited by omission. So it's prohibited, by that I mean it's specifically excluded from several definitions. So motor vehicle parking specifically does not allow a commercial truck parking operation where you can rent a space to park a truck.
Isn't that the point of a text amendment, to take something that's prohibited by omission to make it prohibited by admission?
That's correct. So they are trying to establish a use in the zoning code which is currently prohibited, and I felt that the materials that they presented in order to do that did not adequately distinguish this use from the prohibited use in some way.
How could you possibly have a text amendment if everything is prohibited by omission? If you want to add something, to make a text amendment, to make something admitted by admission, how could you do that? I mean, the text amendment's pointless then. If it's prohibited and you can't do anything to make it unprohibited, then there's no reason to have a text amendment. It's like the whole function of the text amendment, I would assume, correct?
Right.
To
Yeah,
make something
I do see what
no
you're
longer
saying.
prohibited?
I see what you're saying, but the issue that I had with it was they didn't define it in a way to show that it was necessary, to show that it was in any way different than commercial parking that I felt met the various standards. And again, I can open up and go through the menu, the memo, and go through each one if you'd like. But the general theme was that it was there was no evidence that I felt supported their argument.
All right. Mr. Frola, did you have something you wanted to?
Well, there are standards that you've seen them, Trustee.
Right.
Number one is, will the proposed text amendment, does it meet with the intent of the zoning code? I think Director Jennings felt that it didn't. And then you go on and on. So there are standards that the Plan Commission and the Director commented on that certainly trustees may have a different opinion on. But a text amendment certainly is to change the zoning code, but we have standards that ask the question, is it a good idea to change the zoning code? And I think that's what you have to think about when you consider this.
Right.
That's all. If you look at the 5 or 6 standards, they all go to, like number 2, will the proposed text amendment comply with the comp plan, official map, and all other plans and policies adopted by the village? Number 1 is, does the proposed text amendment meet the intent of Title 19? And it goes on and on. So those are items that certainly reasonable minds can.
Yeah, I just disagree with staff. If we have a comprehensive plan that's going to make this an industrial area, and let's be honest about it, this whole area is industrial. The one resident that came up and spoke, the man who's been here for 40 years, said that there's a truck terminal on the other side of his property. We're not talking about, you know, a neighborhood in Riverwoods, which is all kind of rural and foresty and stuff. I mean, this is a nestled neighborhood and bound by an airport, bound to the north by what was Tina Jordan's concrete company in disguise for however many years, bound to the south by light industrial use, and bound to the west by a trucking company and a trucking terminal and I-3 uses. So I don't know, I just disagree with staff's position that an industrial use is a bad idea for this spot, and this particular industrial use. What gets me, and I wasn't here on that meeting, and I watched it, it was May something. What kind of got me from the Director Milanofi's position, and I rarely ever disagree with you, John, but I'm going to for once. I think this is the first time. But the goal was we wanted someone to acquire all of these parcels. We even sold him a parcel, agreed to sell him a parcel of airport land. And now we're saying, oh, well, we want an industrial use, just not your industrial use, which I think is kind of a spit in the face to them, because no one else, the commercial end users that we want, you know, someone like Handyfoil, someone like that, they're not going to have a guy go out there and acquire 3 individual parcels of property from residential people. That's a commercial nightmare for a commercial real estate acquisition. They went out and did it. They dealt with it. They probably paid way more than they wanted to pay for all this stuff, and now they've set it all out. Now we're going to say, well, you know what, you got to cobble it all together and sell it to a different end user because we don't like what you're doing, even though we agreed to sell you that piece of green property right there in that photograph. So I have a problem with that. The other problem I have, and what I say to the residents is, again, that this is nestled in an industrial area. And when we talk about property value, just let's be realistic about it. Wolfront Estates does not have a residential resale property value. The value of someone, if you're looking to make a nest egg in Wolfront Estates, you want to sell to another industrial user. That's who's going to give you more money than anybody else if you're on the south end of that property. You're not going to sell to a family coming in here and making, you know, hand over fist kind of money. You're going to sell to someone who's going to want to make the southern end of that industrial like they want to make the northern end of that industrial. And if you're smart about it, you can be like some of the people in the audience tonight and hold out a little bit and really ratchet up the price of your property. So that's kind of my position on the whole thing. I know there's a lot of people out here with a lot of opinions. Mark Colliander can call me dirty. I hope he doesn't think that way. I highly respect him. I have no skin in this game. I just think the way that this process went along, the way that they acquired the property, the way that we sold them or agreed to sell them the airport property, and the fact that this is going to be an industrial use, and we have no other people at the table. John, if you got other people at the table that want to do this, I mean, do we have them?
There have been developers that have been interested in the property and some companies that have shown an interest in the property, but no one has actually gone out and purchased the property which these developers have.
Exactly.
So they put their money where their mouth is.
And I've heard people say we want a hotel. There was the one very well-spoken resident, I think her name was Miss Boxer, maybe I'm butchering that, saying she wanted a hotel, a restaurant.
That's all great. I would love a Maserati dealership there that's selling 10 Maseratis a day, so we're all getting the sales tax from it. But that's not happening. So I will end on this, a Crosby, Stills and Nash lyric: if you can't be with the one you love, love the one you're with. They're the only ones here. I mean, I don't get it, but.
Thank you, Mr. Vito.
All right.
Trustee Papantos.
Thank you. For clarification, the village did not sell the property to JV Global, correct? It was the airport that sold the property. We approved the transfer of the deed.
Correct. That's an airport board transaction, has absolutely nothing to do with zoning the property.
Right, but we could have denied the transfer of the deed.
The airport signed the contract. We gave the president the right to sign the deed so the airport can realize the gain on that. It has zero to do with zoning.
And what if we didn't give the authority to sign the deed? Then the property couldn't get conveyed.
Arguably, it could have been still conveyed.
I'm walking around without a deed.
The IGA provides that the airport board has the right to sell the land without the municipal approval. The airport attorney asked both communities, for the sake of belt and suspenders, to give their presidents and mayor the right to execute paperwork for the closing. The airport board, review the IGA, has the right to sell property. That's why they signed that contract. So I'm telling you, these are two very different, your points are good in terms of the standards, but when you argue that because we sold them the property, we somehow made some movement toward zoning, that's completely inaccurate.
I don't mean it's a movement toward zoning, but we are a half owner of the property. The people on the board, Ray, David Kolsak, and Neil Katz are our appointees. They made that decision. I mean, there's some, at least pretense, that there's village approval of this because village people who are village appointees approve that contract. And you know, I just think it's
not a zoning issue.
I'm not saying it's a zoning issue. I think it's an estoppel issue, maybe, a detrimental issue. I mean,
it's not even close. We made it very clear.
I'm not saying legally, Jim. I'm saying as an intent, is something that you're purporting that you approve by people who are part of your organization to some degree. It shows a little bit of reliance that, or should lead them to have a little bit of reliance that we are in some type of approval of this. I'm not saying it's a cause of action that they could bring because of our actions. I don't think it makes it a viable lawsuit. I think it just makes it understandable that they would rely on us, and I think that we should take that into consideration when we're doing the zoning on this.
I would just add that contract to purchase was non-contingent upon zoning.
I get it.
Thank you, Mr. Ferrolo. Thank you, Mr. Vito. Trustee Papantos.
I do disagree with you, Trustee Vito, in that I don't feel that the airport board of directors has the authority to speak for this board or for Prospect Heights. They did what was best for the airport, which is what they were told to do, and hopefully in light of the residents of Wheeling. However, just because they voted one way or the other does not mean that this board was going to approve it. And anybody who assumed that should have come before the board before they signed on the dotted line.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Do we have any other comments? Trustee Kruger and Trustee Brady are after.
Thank you, President Horker. I just want to be clear. We're talking about both. We can have discussion about both of these topics right now, right? Okay, so I want to address the zoning topic first. I understand that from Director Jennings' presentation before this topic tonight that we are voting to change the zoning from R1A and I1 to I3. That's it. It should have nothing to do with the proposed project. It should have to do with just the properties. So in order to make that determination, I wanted to see where other I3 existed in the community. So thanks to asking staff to provide me with a full map of all of the zoning, I wanted to see where all of the I3 zones were. There are no I3 zones in the village of Wheeling on any major IDOT thoroughfare. Nowhere. You might argue that Velan Metals or Durable Packaging, Inc. is on Lake Cook Road, but their addresses are on Northgate Parkway. Their ingress-egress is on Northgate Parkway. Northgate Parkway is our road, right? Not IDOT. So when I saw that, I also then, as I was looking and pointing out all the I3s, I noticed that to this village's credit, we put I-3 zoning very strategically along the Canadian National Railroad, so that if there is a heavy or industrial use that requires a spur, they're close to the spur. They can get access to that. But there are none, even except for this little stretch of I-3 that is on Chaddock, that is adjacent to this R1A zoning. It's the only spot. Every other I-3 has no residential element a part of it at all. And that, to me, is the overarching reason why to change these two separately zoned parcels to I-3. Now, it's setting a precedent, I think, that we could, again, along and coupled with the text amendment, if it were to be affirmed tonight, we would have more truck parking transportation facilities in our I-3 zones than we do, dare I say it, video gaming cafes. So I would ask you to choose which you would prefer. Neither are moral judgments that I think that we should make, but I do think that precedent has been set by this village in showing where we think I-3 should be, and that is back off the main drags and away from residential. I don't think that it is in our best interest to put any more I-3 just because there's I-zoning around this residential element. As long as there's a residential element there, I think it behooves us to stay away from closing them in with heavy, heavy I use right next to the residential area. So, and as far as text amendments go, my understanding, I've only seen one of them in my time as an official, and that is a text amendment should differentiate what the use is proposed from any other use in that, like it, so that it helps to protect, like someone earlier that came to part of that, our decision or our responsibility is to, if we're going to pass a text amendment, because they are dangerous and can be they can open up big cans of worms if you don't do them correctly. I don't think this one really differentiated the service or the definition from anyone else who might have the idea to do the same thing. I think a text amendment, if you're going to do one, it needs to be written so clearly that it's clear that this is the only one that's going to get that in the special use, the special use zoning, because it's clearly defined and it's very different from anything else that could go in there that's sort of like a transportation center. This one wasn't as buttoned up as it should be. I would like to have seen more discussion at the Plan Commission level on that topic, but I guess based on the petitioner's request, it got pushed up to us right away. So I just wanted to make sure that my colleagues were aware that there is no I-3 anywhere else in this community on a major thoroughfare. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kruger. Trustee Brady?
Thank you. Yeah. I just have a question. We've been listening about this for quite some time now, and I keep hearing about these 3 local companies that are going to use this site to park their trucks. Andrew, have we seen any letters of intent from companies that are going to lease the property here to park their trucks?
No, I think that's probably a question that's better answered by the petitioner than staff. I don't think I have seen letters of intent from anybody, but they may be able to speak to that.
Would you? Because I find it hard to believe we're going to spend this kind of money on this thing if you don't have 3 people ready to land when it's done. What's the sense of spending the money?
You want to?
Yeah, please, somebody answer my question.
If I may, I'd just like to reiterate Director Jennings' points earlier that the 2 items before you tonight are not about this use specifically. They're about the land. So as this question gets answered, I just want to make sure we're not going in.
True, we have actually strayed a bit from the topic at hand. We're for purposes of clarification, again, Mr. Ferrolo, what exactly specifically are we considering?
We're considering a text amendment in the I-3 zone for a transportation center as that's been defined. And we're considering...
for any I-3 zone?
Correct. And we're considering rezoning this particular parcel to the I3 zone.
Independent of that action.
Right, correct. The special use discussion has gotten delayed, so the first two items can be dealt with.
Okay, thank you. After him. After him. You're up.
Let me clarify a point why we're here and why it's so unusual, because we've requested a text amendment, we requested a map amendment, and then we requested special use. Terry Stylen, who you all know, used to be in the Plan Commission, was at the last Plan Commission hearing, and before I was able to speak as a citizen, he made a comment, and he was correct, that there's no need to go forward to have a hearing on special use if the zoning is denied and the map amendment's denied. So how can you have a special use in a non-conforming zone? So when I brought that to the Plan Commission's attention, they agreed, and that's why it's bifurcated. So tonight what's before you is, are you going to consider rezoning, changing the comprehensive plan from I-1 to I-3? And within that zone, you're going to create a new use, a unique use. Times have changed. I'd like to address a couple of the issues as to definition. Our definition, which we worked on, Michael Blue's a land use planner and myself, a transportation center. Sometimes by definition, you have to define what it is not. Transportation center means a facility primary use for providing outdoor storage of delivery vehicles related to long-haul local deliveries. Such facilities will include accessory services. Let's stop there. What truck parking lot do you have in this village that provides any accessory services? If you need truck repair, you take it down to Horker's Heavy Trucking on Milwaukee Avenue. This facility is going to allow, within its 14,000 square foot building, limited repair services or maintenance services. Let me use the word maintenance, it's not repair. Brakes, tires, washer fluid, oil changes, those are the accessory services that are going to be provided. Moving further on in the definition, such facilities will include accessory services related to delivery vehicles, that's the maintenance of the vehicles, including vehicle maintenance, dispatch operations. Let's stop there. The facility is going to have 14,000 square feet building with 3 offices, generally to be leased out to the 3 major users of the facility.
Counselor, the specific question that Trustee Brady asked was...
I'm getting to it.
Okay. Thank you.
Dispatch operations, limited freight transfer between vehicles. Okay, there's no facility where there's trucks in this village that allows off-site transfer of product between its manufacturers and its delivery vehicles. It's a unique situation. We're prepared to show you how it's relevant. This term does not, and this is my point, this term does not include a long-term truck storage facility, so it's not a truck parking lot. It's not a freight terminal that's been referred to. It's not a truck stop. In our literature, we provided and are prepared to show the differences between those facilities and why this is such a unique use. Addressing Mr. Brady's question, we were at the concept presentation before this board. Mr. Vito wasn't present. We had letters of intent from our providers, our service people that rent from us now. They've asked that their names not be provided in the public record so that they could not be lambasted in the event of some adverse publicity for this facility. I have to respect that. Yeah. And I think you would respect it as well. So, to answer your question, Mr. Brady, we do have letters, okay? But we can't give them to you. We've been specifically asked not to provide that for public sentiment and some disparaging comments that have been brought against the petitioner who sits here tonight, Mr. Jerry Starr. So again, I'm asking that and if you give us the opportunity, we can certainly distinguish what our use is. Contrary to Mr. Jennings' interpretation, I thought this was well crafted, well drafted, and a lot of times, and especially in law school, they taught us, and Mr. Vito can verify this, and I'm sure the village attorney can as well, you have to define something by why it is not, and we did that. Now, if there's a better definition that the village wants to try to craft, we're willing to listen to it. But I don't know of any better definition than to describe what we've already said it is and what it is not. Now, I have one of the principals here tonight who can testify as to what services can be provided in a transportation center that's not available anywhere else in the village. And she can verify that there are clientele, that we have letters of intent that we cannot disclose. So if you want me to go further, we can, or we can move it on.
I would like to give the board priority on the question.
That's fine, and I appreciate that, and I would expect that.
Thank you, sir. Trustee Vito, you're next. Trustee Papanto, you're after.
Yeah, I just want to go back to that meeting that I missed. I watched it, and if I was wrong, let me know. But didn't we agree on the concept review basis at least 6-0 to at least let this go forward on an I-3 rezoning? Or am I wrong on that? I thought it was a vote.
There was 3 votes, and yes, you are correct. You can go back and look at the tape.
Okay.
There was a concept polling whether or not the village would be receptive to change the zoning. Yes, it
2
was
and
voted.
I-3. We're saying no over
No,
there.
it's a special use.
Oh, it was a concept review vote on special use, map amendment, and text amendment.
Andrew, do you know the answer?
No, I don't remember the vote off the top of my head. I have to go back and look at it.
That's not a formal, as you know.
No, it was not
it's not a formal approval.
No, but
The
they
code
certainly
says it's
used
not
as an
a formal
indicator, okay? It's like jury selection and jury trial. You have people that listen to it, we ask their advice, and that's what the board was. We asked the board's advice, or not, we want to go forward with this jury trial.
It has to be vetted as it has been.
That's right, exactly right.
Okay. Okay, thank you, counselors.
All right, so I just wanted to bring that up to Mary's, Trustee Kruger's point that I thought it was a 6-0 vote to at least consider this going to an I-3. With the text amendment in mind, as the video gaming petitioners showed tonight, we don't have to approve a special use even if we have a text amendment. So if ABC Trucking Company wants to come in, and if I'm wrong, staff, Jim, whoever, correct me, but if they come in tomorrow and say, well, now you have this text amendment, we want to open up a trucking transportation center in I-3 on Wheeling Road, we could say no, correct?
Well, it's got to go through the due process hearings. Evidence is presented, and Mr. Stavros would try to make a case that the standards have been met. The PC would hear those standards, make a recommendation, and come up to you for a final decision. Special uses don't give a board the right to say no automatically. It gives the board the right to examine the evidence to determine whether all the standards have been met. And if a zoning petitioner is not happy with a board's decision, that zoning petitioner has a period of time to go to the circuit court. So a special use is a right. It's not a right for you to say no. It's certainly a right for a petitioner to make a case as to why a use fits the standards.
But aren't we giving great deference on that?
You're giving great deference. You are.
Isn't it the standard very high if we reject for them to bring a good cause of action against us?
It's a fact-based analysis that a court would go through, for sure.
Okay.
And it's de novo now, based on the laws that changed. It used to be based on the record you establish here, which was manifest weight. Now it goes up to the circuit court on a de novo basis where
Please, in English, what is de novo?
That means the case, as a new case, gets presented to the court, and each side gets to make their presentation. In years past, you had a record, and for a petitioner to overcome a record, they had to prove that the decision of the board was against the manifest weight of the evidence. It's a very high standard that used to exist. It's not the same.
Thank you, Trustee Vito. Trustee Papantos?
Thank you. We've heard quite a bit tonight about the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan does not indicate that any area is going to be I-1, I-2, I-3, or I-4. It indicates that this particular area will eventually become industrial, certainly not I-3. Mr. Jennings, I just want to verify this. Are there any I-3 areas in the village on major thoroughfares?
I believe that Trustee Kruger's review of the zoning map is correct. They're on major thoroughfares. The ones that are on major thoroughfares front on a different street. There are typically what you'll see is even if the property as a whole is I-3, there'll be a buffer area on that same property, so it'll split the zoning on a property. We've had a few of those on a case-by-case basis where a petitioner owned one of those buffers and then requested removal of the buffer after the street had developed. Palatine Road, for example, we had a rezoning petition where there was an I-3 when the street itself was shown to have developed in a different way. So the short answer is Trustee Kruger's analysis is correct. There's a little bit of a nuance as to there's a couple of locations that are that have been tweaked over time, but typically you'll see, as you see on this map, there's an I-1 strip in the middle. You'll see that frequently in town as a small buffer.
Thank you. And Attorney Maluzzi, during the Plan Commission, you stated that the I-1 is meant as a step up to go from the light to the heavier to the heavier to the heavier uses. Am I correct?
Yes, the village has 5 industrial zones, and each one increased with the intensity of use. I-1 and I-2 have a lot more office space. Their intent, I could pull the code again, but they have the intent of cohabitating near residential. I-3 is a heavy industrial area that allows for heavy motor vehicles and outdoor storage, which wouldn't be allowed in I-1 and I-2.
Thank you. As far as the text amendment goes, our code has been around a long time, and there's a reason why we don't have transportation centers or this type of use in our code. It has never been deemed suitable for our village, and I'm confused as to why we would change it at this point, especially in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Papantos. Any other questions or comments? Vogel, Papantos, Vito, Brady, Kruger, Lang. If no one else has any other questions or no other comments,
I have a comment. I represent the petitioner,
yes,
and I'd like to respond to Ms. Papantos' statement, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
I know you all have a lot of packet material to look at, and a lot of times you read stuff and you forget what you read. I want to read the staff report that was given to the Plan Commission. Just the key parts of it. The question, will the proposed rezoning comply with the intent purpose of Title 19 zoning? Staff, rezoning I-3 is consistent with the comprehensive plan, future land use plan, quotation. Question, will the proposed rezoning comply with the comprehensive plan official map and all other plans, policies adopted by the village of Wheeling, by the village? Staff, the subject site is shown as industrial in the comprehensive plan. The proposed rezoning to I-3 General Industrial District is consistent with the comprehensive plan. So why are we to believe that the comprehensive plan would not be used in this facility to be changed from I-1 to I-3 when your own staff recommended it? That's my comment.
Thank you, Councilor. If there are no other comments,
Voting on E, right?
yeah, we'll do E first, and for purposes of clarification, Mr. Ferrolo, please explain exactly what it is the vote would be for, then I'll ask for a motion, and then I'll ask for a second.
Certainly. Item 13E relates to the text amendment in the I-3 Industrial District as drafted and as contained in the ordinance. So you'd ask for a motion to approve and consider the text amendment. 13F relates to the rezoning of this particular property to the I-3 district, and the staff report that Attorney Stavros just read from relates to the rezoning rather than the text amendment, which is item 13E.
Okay, so 13.
So that would be the case. I would be looking for a motion to...
And just one clarification on that then.
Trustee Lang.
And would you, so if one gets, if the transportation center E gets denied, is it smart to rezone when the use isn't determined at that point?
What would the effect be?
Yeah.
Mr.
You're
Ferrolo,
rezoning without a use.
The effect would be to rezone the property and grant the property in its entirety the right to the permitted uses and the special uses as they exist in the I-3 district.
I-3s, okay.
You know, apart from this particular use.
Got it.
I would suggest you do vote on both of these items, one way or the other, no matter how either one goes, so that the petitioner has the benefit of your final decision and can then make a decision as to whether or not The petitioner wants to seek review if appropriate, or go in another direction.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Is everyone clear? Thank you. I need a motion to approve 13E.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Lang, second.
Second. Trustee Kruger. This
Trustee
way.
Kruger. Wasn't watching. Roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
No.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
No.
Trustee Papantos?
No.
Trustee Vogel?
No.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
It's 4-3.
4-3 fails. I still need a motion for 13F.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Second.
Hold on. Can I make one comment on this? I think.
Please, Trustee Vito.
If our goal, as John Malanaphy said, was to have someone cobble up this land so someone else can use it, we at least owe the petitioner the right to rezone it so he can resell it. If it stays R1, I1, he's going to have very limited uses on it. And I don't know if I'm wrong, John, tell me why I'm wrong, but.
Yeah, I don't think that I think that the board should discuss at a different time whether or not the land should be zoned I3 or I1 or I2. The degree to which the comp plan, the degree to which this board feels that area should be rezoned industrial has not been discussed. Before you tonight is a specific request for I3. The comp plan doesn't call out, as Attorney Stavros said, the comp plan says this can be industrial. So what he said, of course, is accurate, but that's a question of could, not a question of should. The question of should has not been discussed by this board. So before you tonight is specifically I3. What you haven't had the opportunity to do is discuss whether or not the impact of I3 is what you feel is appropriate for that area. It could still be I1 or I2, and that's a conversation that is not a part of tonight's vote because the request by the petitioner tonight is specifically for I3.
I see. So when are we going to discuss that? On another?
Well, if the land is under control by the petitioner would need to ask that question.
Well, the petitioner's a contract purchaser, and with some of this land, absent the airport land, this is contingent upon zoning. So if the zoning fails, you know, Attorney Stavros could speak to this. I'm not sure where their real estate contract's going to go. So maybe, Al, you want to speak to that?
Let me address those.
Yeah.
First off, we have assembled a lot of parcels, not just 3, a lot, owned by 3 different people.
I didn't say 3.
One being the airport. All right, the airport, you're correct. We negotiate a fair price. It's not contingent on the zoning. But we've been able to extend the closing depending on what this board does. Now, I can't speak for the management or the owner of JV Services, Global Services LLC, but I can tell you that I don't know if they're going to want to purchase the airport property based on the zoning being denied. If you don't have the I3 zoning, as you know, we can't ask for a text amendment because it doesn't fall within, or a special use within that. So what we did at the Plan Commission was what we should have did. We needed to weed it out, vet it out, come to the board, which we did, and find out what the board's position is. So since the board's position is now we're not going to rezone the property to I3, then the other 2 parcels or other parcels owned by the other 2 parties are contingent on rezoning. And I can assure you that we're not buying those properties. And I don't even have to have that discussion with the owner. But I do know that as he sits here tonight, he's probably not going to buy the airport property, but he's here himself. You can ask him personally. So the village, with its intent to rezone the property comprehensive plan to assemble all these properties, of which we went and took that step, obviously your plan has got some flaws in it. So if you got somebody else better to buy this property and rezone it and generate revenues for the village, then you should exercise it. But I think, Mr. Malanaphy, I tell you, there's nobody standing out there waiting to buy this property. There's no hotel that's going to come there. The first thing you look at when you rise off the airport runway of any airport in this country, you look down, you see industrial. So if that's the village board's position, we respect it. We'll make our decision down the road. But I think I'm speaking for the management and ownership of JB Global Services, Inc. And he's here himself. He can speak for it.
Do you have a second motion? Did you second it?
Is this even appropriate to vote on right now, since we?
There was clarification from
Okay.
trustee Vito. And, I'm sorry, go ahead, trustee Vito.
Is this even appropriate to vote on now, given?
You certainly can. You can also move the table it as well, and if you do that, if you get a majority vote, if you move the table, that would take precedence, and it would get tabled. But it is appropriate because it's before us, and I think it's appropriate because, as I said, you'd give the petitioner at least the benefit of a final decision if the petitioner was wanting to seek review, rather than hold it in this, abeyance, trustee Vito. So I think as far as the petitioner goes, it would at least give them something to move on for review.
So if you wanted to grant, so if trustee if anyone wanted to grant them time, they could make a motion to table.
Someone can make a motion to table.
Mr. Parliamentarian now would trump the motion that's on the table.
Correct. It would.
For it.
Yes, it would.
Trustee Lang.
But as I asked before, wouldn't you need a specific use? Wouldn't we want a specific use before we granted a zoning for that?
That's what I was going to ask, was...
Wouldn't we want a specific use in mind? This is what we intend to put here before we zone it or change the zoning.
That should probably be a poll.
Well, that's what I was going to ask too,
Right.
President Horker, was now that E has failed, there's not a viable project now in mind for F.
True. So the question you were going to ask was, should we have a specific use in mind before we advance
Correct.
to
Shouldn't
the...
there be a viable project for the site before we rezone?
Is it required, Mr. Ferrolo?
Is it required? No.
Would the board, I'm going to poll the board, would the board prefer to see, well, you have a project. Would the board, did they have a project? What would I, you mean a different project?
They don't have a project with the Transportation Center text
Well,
amendment?
that's true. There is no, yes.
So what project do they have?
Well, you don't have the zone. If you don't have the zone, you can't go forward.
Correct.
So you deny the zone, so it's over.
Thank you.
We didn't deny the zone yet, though.
We don't have a required use from them. We can't poll the board whether or not we would like the use, because their defined use does not exist.
I mean, you could just have a discussion on the item. You've got a motion, you're going to have a motion to approve F. It's going to be open for discussion.
We have a motion to approve.
Right, and so there's motions on the table, it's open for discussion. Board members can weigh in and say, I'm in favor or I'm not. A reason to not be in favor may be that we don't have a use. So just have the discussion and then call for the vote. Or if there's a motion to table, that's another issue. And maybe if there's a motion to table, perhaps before you take that motion, you can ask Attorney Stavros on behalf of the petitioner, do they want to withdraw the rezoning request? I mean, that's certainly an option for them to state to you, in which case that's an entirely different scenario. We can withdraw. You can withdraw the motion you made to approve. We can move to motion to remove the item from the agenda and just move on rather than table it.
Trustee Lang, you have made a motion. Trustee Vito, would you be inclined to make a motion to table, or would you be willing to wait for a discussion?
I'm not sure.
I'm sorry.
I'm starting to think about what it's going to impact the people that have the property now. If all these contracts are contingent and then we zone I3, well, they're raising their hands over there, and then we zone I3, are they now screwed somehow, or
Thank you.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't want to zone it I3 and then hurt the people that are now going to be held with this property that's, it's already I3. Look at Tina Jordan's 14,000 trucks there. But, I don't want to damage anyone in this by making a zoning move that results as a taking or hurts the value of their property in any way. So I don't really know what the right move is here, and I'm looking for a little guidance from somebody to figure out if we leave it R1, I mean, I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know.
Okay, trustee Vito, hold. Trustee Papantos?
I just want some clarification of something trustee Lang asked. If we approve this as I3, any acceptable I3 use can go into that property. Somebody else could come and buy it, and it could be used as I3.
That's
Is that correct?
Yes.
And Director Jennings, what are some uses of I3 per code? Not special use, just uses of I3.
So it generally is the heavier industrial district. So it allows a lot of the uses that are also allowed in the I1 and I2, but then it's cumulative. It adds heavier manufacturing, for example, which is manufacturing that involves more production from raw materials. So you see heavier machinery involved in the processes.
So anything like that could be on that property?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Brady, you had a question?
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. It seems to be this I3 is the biggest hangup we've got right now. Will any of this work if we did all I1 with some
It'd be a different proceeding, a different docket would have to be opened, and they'd have to start over at the Plan Commission to address that. Certainly, you can discuss these items at least minimally now, but it would take a different docket.
Trustee Kruger is right. There isn't any property along the entire length of Wolf Road that's above an I1.
Mr. Brady, if I may comment?
Mr. Stavros?
Thank you. We met with staff. I mean, this isn't something that we did overnight. I mean, we many meetings with staff, and it was Mr. Jennings who said that this use would only fall into an I3. So we defer to staff, and they're familiar with what we proposed. So it was the I3 zone. I don't know if it would work in an I2 zone, but staff's the one to recommend that I3, and we've spent a considerable amount of money and energies and time going down that route. I don't know if I2 would work. I don't think if it did, Mr. Jennings would have recommended it, and he didn't.
To be clear,
Thank you, Mr.
staff didn't recommend I3. The use falls into most closely I3.
That's right. But since we dealt with Mr. Jennings, that's who we're talking with.
And I was at the first meeting with the petitioner when we told them that this was going to be challenged from the beginning.
But I don't think you were at any meeting I was at.
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
The answer...
I mean, I met with your staff. Let's be clear, okay?
Mr. Jennings, would you like to respond to Mr. Stavros?
Sure. It does fall most closely into the I3. That is
Thank you, Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings.
Thank you, gentlemen.
President Horker, is there a second on the motion to approve?
There is not a second.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So we do have a motion for 13.
Second.
There's a second. The motion is opened. We can now have discussion if anybody feels we need more discussion.
All right, so Mary Kruger seconded?
Correct.
All right. Do I take a vote now?
Well, just a minute.
Okay.
I have
Trustee
one
Kruger.
question. Thank you. Director Jennings, in the comp plan where it states that this area is designed in the future as industrial, does it differentiate 1, 2, 3, or 4?
No, it does not.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other questions? So this is 13F, and 13F very succinctly, Mr. Ferrolo, is what?
It's an ordinance granting a rezoning of this particular property to an I3 industrial district.
Thank you. Now, Clerk Simpson.
Trustee Kruger?
No.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
No.
Trustee Papantos?
No.
Trustee Vogel?
No.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes?
It's 4-3.
Yes. I counted.
Okay.
Mr. Stavros, I'm sorry. Thank you, everyone, for a passionate discussion. We have items on the agenda yet.
Item G.
Please.
Item G, resolution authorizing the village manager to approve a contract for planning services with Farr and Associates for the station area plan update in an amount not to exceed $89,760.
Mr. Jennings, what is this?
Thank you.
Hello.
This is the resolution in front of you would authorize the village manager to enter into a contract for planning consulting services. We most recently spoke about this project at the joint plan commission and board meeting in June. The staff have been discussing for some time the impact of having an obsolete sub-area plan for the station area. So the solution that we discussed with the Plan Commission at the joint meeting was opening a RFP to solicit proposals for a planning study to essentially remove the current station area plan as the sub-area plan for the area around the town center and replace it with a functional document that could guide village policy to foster the continued growth of the town center. Some of the items that we discussed at that time were the changes in the residential market, the village investment in the village hall, as well as regional stormwater project, the change in the retail market at the time of the 2003 and 2004 study. The character of retail was expected to continue. The trend of big box development was expected to continue. That, of course, has not panned out. So for a number of reasons, we felt that the existing document was obsolete, and the village will be best served by replacing that document with a new plan to guide the growth of the area. So following the RFP, we did receive multiple proposals. We are recommending approval of the proposal by Farr Associates. The contract amount, as the ordinance states, the resolution states, is $89,760. There is an option in the contract. If it were to be approved, there's an option to work with the consultant on a alternative approach to one of the tasks, specifically the review of the development scenarios to refine them into a preferred development scenario. The proposal gives us the option of working with them to condense the time frame for that. And if this were to be approved, we would talk to the consultant to see if that's truly appropriate for the purpose of coming up with the best possible plan at the end of the day. So there is a representative of the firm here, and I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Questions,
Trustee Lang?
Well, I pulled up the first picture. You don't have it up there, but it's that overview. That's a massive piece of property. It's almost 2 times the size of the town center property. Whatever we can do to plan it correctly, I'm all for it. I mean, I think we're on the right track to, instead of doing this ourselves or seeing what comes along, I think having someone plan this is exactly what we need. Just saying. So.
Thank you, Trustee Lang. Any other comments or questions?
I agree with that, but I think that someone should be John Malanfey, like I said at the Plan Commission meeting.
Sorry, what?
I think that someone should be John, like I said at the Plan Commission meeting. So I don't know. I don't think we should be spending money on this, but when we have an in-house guy that can do it.
Thank you, Trustee Vito. Comments or questions? Trustee Brady?
I'd like to know, during the course of this study, who's going to be brought in and interviewed and questioned for the village's end of what we'd like to see happen here.
There's an initial kickoff meeting with the consulting team, and we'll go through the potential, the list with them to get some of their advice. But that is one of the first items, is working through exactly the approach to complete all the tasks that are listed in the proposal. Again, those are things that we spelled out for them in the RFP and they're responding to it. So we will be working with them to come up with the game plan.
This will be more or less like a mini master plan, right?
A mini master plan is a pretty good way of putting it, yes.
Bring in all kinds of different people during the course of the studies and not just listen to staff. Is that so? You bring in businesses, maybe the board, plan commission.
We'll be working with them to come up with the stakeholder list and make sure that we're covering all of our bases.
I hope so. Thank you.
If there are no other questions or comments, I would look for a motion to approve.
So move.
Motion trustee Lang.
Second?
Second trustee Kruger. Roll call, Clerk Simpson.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
No.
Trustee Vito, no. Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
Okay.
I, or H rather.
H is next. H, resolution waiving the Fidelity and Surety bond requirements for Wheeling Helping Hands to conduct a raffle event from August 15, 2018 through September 8, 2018.
I can handle this.
Go ahead.
Typically, this would appear before the board on consent agenda. The only reason it is not is our code requires that the waiving of Fidelity and Surety bond requirements come from the board. And because Trustee Vogel is an officer of Wheeling Helping Hands, this is just an opportunity for him to abstain from the vote.
Okay.
So unless there are questions or comments, motion to approve.
So move.
Trustee Lang, second.
Second.
Trustee Papantos. Did you do that?
Am I a member of Wheeling Helping Hands?
You're a member of the board.
Are you a member of the board, the executive board?
I'm asking the officer.
Oh, whether or not you can vote.
I believe I have to abstain as well.
What's your position, please, for the record?
Director of Marketing.
Okay. I think an abstention is the best thing there.
Okay.
So we have a motion, we have a second, and now roll call.
Trustee Kruger?
Abstain.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Abstain.
And what's your position, Trustee Vogel, for the record?
Treasurer.
Treasurer?
Correct.
Trustee Brady?
Abstain.
Again, your position?
I'm in charge of the beer concession.
President
All right, you
Horker?
got three.
Vital. Yes.
Okay.
He's got the tap.
Okay.
I should have known. I apologize.
Okay, now we have I.
13I.
13I, resolution authorizing the agreement between the Village of Wheeling and Chicago's North Shore Convention and Visitors Bureau.
This was removed from consent. Trustee Papantos.
Yes, thank you. The reason I removed it was when we initially approved this last November in the budget hearings, Sam's Club was still open, and Sam's Club was a significant contributor to our sales tax base. And now it's not there, and we're going to have to start thinking of different ways to come up with some of these, I mean, as an extra. I mean, this is almost a nice to have. It doesn't really serve the residents per se. You know, are we going to increase licensing fees? You know, we've heard from business owners saying, let's not have more liquor license, and I understand what you're saying. However, that's one way that we do get money into our village. We need to start looking at these things, and I just wanted to bring it up for discussion that we're about to spend $83,000 on this for a year, and I believe, and I don't know the exact number from Sam's Club, but I think that that's a little bit more than $83,000, or what we lost, and I'm assuming, I don't know the number, but I think I might be right. You know, and it's just something that I wanted to bring up.
Comments, Mr. Spondilis?
I can't argue with that. We discussed this, those very issues at budget time. The only thing that I would say is because I don't know, you don't have the contract in front of you either. I believe we have to give them 6 months advance notice. And the only reason that this is before you now is because their fiscal year runs July 1st through June 30th. So I don't know if we would be able to exit the contract at this point because we owe them 6 months notice. But what you're saying is relevant and can be applied towards any future membership. Also, you know, the idea, and I guess that's the discussion, is this an investment in the community? It is hard to measure return on investment when it comes to this kind of advertising and marketing, but that certainly is a discussion and decision the board has to make.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Vogel?
Just one comment. It's not quite as bad as spending $300,000 to sponsor a bowl game as one of our southern municipalities did. So I don't know. I don't want to say we're doing it because everybody's doing it, but again, it's difficult to measure. But at the same time, I think it does give us an advantage. It gets us out there in front of the public outside the village, and I think it attracts people to the various amenities that we have, the restaurants, the hotel. I'm sure it attracts people to the aquatic center and things, so there is a benefit there. And I'm sure those people spend money, so hopefully it is proven that it's money well worth spent.
If there are no other comments or questions, I need a motion to approve.
So move.
Motion, Trustee Lang.
Second.
Second, Trustee Kruger. Clerk Simpson, roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
No.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes.
Bills.
Nope, official communications.
Oh,
Didn't you have something?
Yes.
yes, I'd like to remind everybody that tomorrow is the National Night Out at the Wheeling Park District at Heritage Park. It's the Give Neighborhood a Crime and Drugs a going away party. There'll be live music, giveaways, food, free pool admission, and much more. And it's tomorrow night, August 7th, from 5:30 to 8:30 at Wheeling Park District, providing if it doesn't rain.
Chief, we had, Deputy Chief, we had Lexington had their own little night out the other night. Officer Laverde was there. It was very nice. It was good of you guys to bring the bulletproof golf cart, whatever.
But that's really any car.
What do you refer to that thing as? It's an excellent vehicle. You're going to have it tomorrow night? Yes, we will. Everyone should stop by and see it. It's an electronic Hummer golf cart.
It's really neat.
It is very neat. Yes. Any other comments? Official communications? Trustee Papantos?
Hopefully I will see everybody there tomorrow night, and I believe the police department is collecting school supplies also at that time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, at both locations, at the band shell and at the pool.
Thank you.
What time does this start?
5:30. 5:30 to 8:30.
Excellent. Anybody? Now we can proceed to the bills.
Okay.
Need a motion to approve the bills for July 12th through August 1st of 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Motion, Trustee Vogel. Second, Trustee Kruger. Roll call, please.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, we do have an executive session this evening for the purposes of pending, probable, or imminent litigation, setting a price for sale or lease of property owned by the village, and for the review of minutes lawfully closed under the Open Meetings Act. So we're going to have a motion to recess into executive sessions. If I could have a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion, Trustee Papantos.
Second.
Second, Trustee Kruger. Roll call.
Trustee Kruger?
Yes.
Trustee Vito?
Yes.
Trustee Lang?
Yes.
Trustee Papantos?
Yes.
Trustee Vogel?
Yes.
Trustee Brady?
Yes.
President Horker?
Yes, thank you all for sharing your evening with us. Ms. Stein, thank you for coming almost every night, representing the Park District. That's very nice of you. Good night, everyone. And President Schultz. Recessing to executive session.